Hey, this is Eric Bowman, registered physiotherapist and strength coach, coming to you from Ontario, Canada. I got a question in my Instagram DMs this morning about how I manage continuing education. It's a common question I get, and I'm a little overdue for putting a video out, so I thought I'd make a video out of this, so bear with me. So I look at continuing education in terms of one, the topics of continuing education, and two, the mode. In terms of topics, I have to look at it in terms of one, conditions I see a lot of, or two, conditions I don't know much about but are still reasonably in my ballpark. In terms of the latter, for example, I have one client dealing with back pain and bone metastases right now who's had a few different surgical procedures. Another example is I have a client with meralgia paresthetica. Those are conditions where I'm spending a bit more time upscaling my knowledge on. If it's a condition that's way too far out for me, for example, like pelvic physio, that would be a case I would just automatically refer to someone else. Pediatrics, same kind of idea. So, in terms of conditions I see a lot of back pain, see a lot of rotator cuffs, see a lot of osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, for example. I also, again, live in a couple different worlds between the physio world, the strength and conditioning world, as well as between the weight training / athlete demographics and the geriatric demographic. So I wear a few different hats, so to speak. So I have to really determine what continuing education serves those populations that I work with or may need some upscaling on because they're in my schedule once in a blue moon. Also, I am not a huge, this may sound a bit arrogant, but I don't spend a lot of time on continuing education that shows me what I already know. If it's, there's always a gajillion papers, for example, coming out that exercise is helpful for hip arthritis, exercise is helpful for knee arthritis. I will save those in my research paper folders, but they're not by any means going to be a priority. I have to really pick and choose the information that I need to go through. Another topic that kind of falls out of this, but is still important to bring up, that I spend a lot of time on, stuff pertaining to behavior change, stuff like acceptance and commitment therapy, stuff like motivational interviewing, more as it applies to physio, rehab, and exercise. Unfortunately, those practices were developed for other things, so unfortunately, there's still a bit of dearth in guidance in how to apply that in a physio and exercise standpoint, but I'm always learning and upscaling myself on those techniques as well, because I would argue those can be as big, if not more important skills to have than your exercise and your manual therapy skills. So in terms of what I spend my time learning about, again, mostly common conditions, common demographics that I see, and also occasionally the once in a blue moon conditions that do end up in my schedule that are still within my ballpark. And then in terms of modes of continuing education, I split it into mobile and non-mobile. Because of how chaotic my schedule has been the last 2 years, and especially the last 11 months with a couple deaths in the family, I do a lot of my continuing education, quote-unquote, mobile, i.e. from my cell phone. So I'm going to flip over to my computer and I'm going to show you the modes that I use for that. The listening app, www.listening.com, which you do have to pay for, is an app that you can use to you download research papers as a PDF on your computer or on your phone, and you can upload them as an audio file, and it reads them to you. I found that this has been a game changer because it still allows me to keep up on research while I can listen to it while I'm doing a 10-minute walk or I'm cleaning up my dishes or stuff like that. Another resource I use is the Physio Network research reviews. I find them extremely handy to play to keep up with research in a condensed, summarized way. I'll often just set 1 month's worth of reviews, just set it on play and just let it go. And also podcasts. Again, I'm a huge believer. The 3 podcasts I listen to the most are Again, Physio Network, obviously I'm biased because I write for them. I like the PT Coffee Cast, again, some good local talent in Southern Ontario. And I also do like the MMOA podcast through ICE, even though they've gone through some changes recently with their setup. So podcasts are a third option I use to help with quote-unquote mobile continuing education. In terms of non-mobile continuing education, I do really appreciate if I have access to internet and time to sit down. I do appreciate the Physio Network masterclasses, a lot of great ones on here. This is one I helped with a little bit with my professor, Dr. Laura John Gregorio at University of Waterloo, who I help out with research and lecturing for. Sometimes, like today's Instagram story, if I'm getting an oil change or a tire change, I may not have access to Wi-Fi. I'll just often crack open a book. This is Science and Practice of Strength Training, one of the great strength training manuals of our time, along with Nick Winkelman's The Language of Coaching, which is very applicable both to rehab, fitness, basically anyone who does a lot of exercise. I don't do a ton of sit-down reading of research very much anymore. I just listen to it on the fly. I do the odd in-person course, although I am very picky and choosy with what in-person courses I do. In terms of how I organize things in my Google Drive, which I back up once a month, I do have various folders for course information, videos, research, books, PDFs, random Instagram stuff, etc., etc., etc. And I have my research folders here organized alphabetically to keep things easy to find. And obviously this is something that you will update as you go. So I hope that provides a bit of a useful guide on how I prioritize my topics for continuing education and how I do continuing education. Again, I do continuing education still almost every day. I'm just not as good about posting about it because of other priorities. I hope that helps. As always, thanks for watching.